They won't say it out loud yet, not the exchanges, not the team, not the market makers who already know the shape of the order book before anyone else sees it. But if you've been watching AFX closely, you can feel the pressure building behind the curtain. A listing isn't a tweet. A listing is plumbing, it's legal, it's risk. It's a dozen dry documents and 2 lines of code to mean more than noise. For weeks the surface looked calm, timeline quiet, price coiled, sentiment distracted. That's how staging always looks from the outside. But underneath, the rhythm changed. Developers cleaned branches without showboating. Functions tagged experimental were suddenly precise. Vault hooks activated and then deactivated like heartbeat tests. Validator footprints aligned with Asian time zones, not because it looks cool on a map, but because that's where the venue infrastructure lives. If you've ever watched a serious listing assemble itself, you know this tempo. Small things stop being random. Small things start being measured. The first tell wasn't some influencer hint. It was liquidity structure. Sell-side depth thinned around round numbers while an opposing ladder appeared in small, evenly spaced clips. Not walls, steps. Steps placed by someone who wants inventory without headlines. You see the same pattern in legacy markets when a listing is near. A participant with patience and a clock, not a participant with FOMO. Bots test micro moves. Candles nudge and stall. The market is not asleep. It's practicing. Then there were the ghost pings. Asset code references surfacing in endpoints before marketing touches anything. Not press releases, JSON. Tiny, boring metadata lining up in exactly the right places. Ticker placeholders, icon URLs disabled until enabled. You can't trade a placeholder, but you can read what it implies. Venues don't add placeholders for fun. They do it because technical teams work ahead of comms. And technical teams only work ahead when something reaches the checklist phase. Checklists are where dreams become schedules. They ask the ugly questions. Is custody confirmed? Are contract addresses verified and final? Do decimals match the instrument? Has the venue simulated the first 5 minutes of chaos? Are there market makers on both sides? Can we withstand the first drawdown? None of that looks sexy on social media. All of it determines whether a listing survives day one. Some people want fireworks. Smart people want friction tests. They want to know what happens if the book gaps twice in 30 seconds. They want to know how fast fresh supply routes into the venue. They want to know whether the first wave of takers are tourists or tenants. If AFX has been preparing for this moment, and the signals say it has, then the real story is if, as much as how. How means a venue that matches the narrative. AFX has evolved into an east-leaning story. Diligence, compliance, bridges that actually settle, devs who ship without parading. Hong Kong and Singapore don't reward shouting. They reward clean rails. A listing that routes through that corridor isn't a marketing event. It's an access event. It flips the switch for participants who won't touch a DEX no matter how strong the tokenomics are. It gives funds a line in their memo they can defend. Liquid on a regulated venue, traceable order flow, custody supported, kicked counterparties. That sentence invites capital in ways 100 tweets never could. But capital doesn't show up to a rumor. Capital shows up to validation. That's why the groundwork matters. Maker agreements inked before the AMA. API health checked before the teaser. Fee tiers negotiated before the logo appears on a banner. If you look closely in the data exhaust, you can spot the choreography. Passive accumulation that doesn't chase price. Bursts of depth that materialize and vanish at consistent intervals. The way spread tightens for minutes at a time like a rehearsal. It's not theatrical, it's operational. And then there's timing, the part everybody underestimates. Announce on the wrong day and you drown beneath a macro headline. Flip the switch in the wrong hour and you cede the book to predators. The right window is a moving target defined by volatility, calendar, and attention. BTC dominance easing, alt starting to breathe, Asia waking up while the West winds down. That handover zone is historically where midcaps write their origin myth. If AFX wants not just a pop but a position, it won't wait for a tidal wave to bury it. It will arrive a beat before the chorus hits. What does arrival look like in practice? It rarely begins with the biggest venue. It begins where the operational stack is friendly to assets with a story to prove. You see a mid-tier with strong Asian distribution flip the asset ID to tradable, pair it to USDT, maybe to a regional fiat. You see initial spreads wider than Twitter expects and narrower than pros fear. You see volume that's real enough to be noisy and disciplined enough to be durable. The first hour is a storm of takers. The second hour is the X-ray. If makers refill without panic and takers return after the first pullback, you're not watching a headline, you're watching a hinge. A hinge moment turns a symbol into a system. New eyes find the ticker because it's finally one click away. Analysts can mark real candles in a venue they monitor. Partners stop saying, we like the tech but we can't tell our ops team to onboard a DEX. Exchanges that didn't want to be first don't want to be last. Syndication begins. Trackers add the pair by default. Pricing APIs normalize the feed. Chart packages stop lagging. Liquidity stops being a cliff and becomes a slope. But listing isn't a gift, it's a test. It asks whether the community can act like adults for 48 hours. It asks whether the project can resist the urge to victory lap when the better move is to quietly support the book and let usage, not ego, do the talking. It asks whether early holders understand that volatility is not a personal insult. It is the price of admission to a wider world. If AFX passes that test, the next steps come faster than anyone expects. Custodians add coverage. Lending desks sniff at collateralization. Builders who were watching for a venue DM for integration docs. Opportunity compounds. So what should watchers actually watch? Watch the order book around round numbers before news breaks. Watch for the same wallet buying in small, regular clips across hours rather than minutes. Watch dev repos for merges without commentary. Productionized code speaks louder than emojis. Watch venue metadata for disabled assets quietly gaining full descriptors. Watch for market maker fingerprints. Narrow spreads that hold for 6 to 9 minutes at a time. Then widen exactly when retail rushes in. Those are tells. Those are the parts of the movie where the soundtrack drops an octave and you realize the scene is about to turn. There are traps, and it would be dishonest not to name them. Pre-listing rumor cycles breed overpositioning and underpatience. A venue can slip a date. A pair can go live with lower depth than model. A first candle can trick you into buying the wick or selling the floor. Strategy beats emotion. Use limits when the book looks like a bandsaw. Scale rather than lunge. Define what wrong means to you before the bell, not after it. This is not financial advice. It's survival etiquette when the room gets loud. If the listing resolves on an Asia First venue, don't misread it as smaller news. In this cycle, Asia First is often institutions first. It means the pipelines that actually matter for durable flow are kicking the tires. It means compliance departments can point to a jurisdiction and an auditor. It means OTC desks can price the asset without apologizing for where they sourced it. It means smart money can show up without writing an essay to their risk committee. Coins don't graduate because they trend. They graduate because serious people can justify touching them. Zoom out and you see why AFX has been so quiet. The team's temperament matches the thesis. Build the piece that outlasts the news. A bridge that clears, a vault that roots, an index that settles, a chain that doesn't crack under attention. You don't brag about that. You demonstrate it in the only language the ecosystem respects: uptime. A listing doesn't create that character, it reveals it. If AFX has it, you'll see it in the stability of the bid after the first red candle, in the speed with which depth reappears, in the absence of panic posts from the people who actually know what they're doing. There's an old line traders say when the setup is obvious but not yet public, the venue will tell the story. It's true here. You and I can connect clues and still be wrong on the week. Venues don't guess. They clear or they don't. When they clear, it's usually because the checklists have enough green to justify the risk. When they clear, the narrative becomes simpler than the rumor. The ticker is there. The pair is live. The book breathes. And every argument about if evaporates into the only argument that matters. How big can this get if it holds? If you've held AFX through the quiet months, this is the moment to remember why patience was the edge. Not because you called a date, but because you understood the sequence. Build first, access next, attention last. Most projects invert that order and burn out. AFX has, so far, refused to play that game. A listing done right is not a finish line, it's a doorway. It doesn't instantly rewrite price history. It changes who is allowed to write the next chapter. So stay with the signals. Read the book, not the banner. If the API pings multiply and the placeholders harden into instruments, you'll know the window has opened. If the window opens and the first hour looks like a storm, remember storms pass or prove the house. Either way, we learn the truth about structure we've only guessed at. The chart will get louder. Don't let it drown the tells that got you this far. Bottom line, staging is visible to those who choose to see it. The rhythm is different now. The pieces have stopped drifting and started aligning. Whether the announcement lands tomorrow or next week, whether the first venue is the one you wanted or the one the pipeline required, the shape of the moment is the same. Access is the unlock. Discoverability is the multiplier. Discipline is the moat. If AFX walks through this door the way it built the door, quietly, correctly, and on time, then the story that follows won't be about a candle. It will be about a corridor that finally opened. Until the venue speaks, treat every hint as preparation, not proof. Position with a plan. Protect your capital. Respect the mechanics. And when the bell finally rings, let the book, not the timeline, tell you whether this was hype or a hinge the whole market will notice after it swings. Stay patient, stay precise. Access first. Attention second. The rest will take care of itself.